that they are now obsolete. So that's an issue that needs to be resolved. I am aware that one of the things because currently what the Kimskid does, as I'm sure you members of the panel know, is the starting with the registration of voters, then the registration of candidates, then the identification at the polling station of the voter, and finally, which is the most problematic, the transmission, especially of the presidential result from there. So, and in the process of answering the question, I would want to ask, if I'm in the commission and just sat there, I would want to find out from the technology people, for example, how can technology carry the voter with IEBC from the time they vote up to the time results are announced. For example, the issue of technology keeping the voters, if I vote, for example, if I normally vote at a polling station called Kisi Primary School. When I vote there and leave the station, if at the close of the voting, I got a message that tells me in your polling station, X number of people voted. This is when they have done the counting. These are the results. The ones that are being announced, pinned to the door, and transmitted, and then physically taken. If that was done, I venture, and technology helped the voter to get that. I venture to suggest that a Kenyan who was so minded could actually do the arithmetic themselves. So by the time IEBC is announcing the result, they are able to, if they are so minded, to do that arithmetic, whether through their political parties or not. So I think what I would be asking, not being a technology person myself, my question will still remain what I would be asking the technology people. What is it additional that we can do for the voter to feel that there's nothing going on wrong, there's nothing they've missed? Yeah.
My last question. So the law and there are instances that the technology does fail. It's technology, it can fail. So the law envisages that IBC should contemplate having a complementary system. Two questions. What is this complementary system? And the second question, how would you ensure that that complementary system remains credible, verifiable, accurate, and accountable?
Okay, the first question.
Put on your mic, Justice.
I'm sorry, Chair. The first question, what is this alternative? This was the subject of litigation. Of course, having another technologically based complementary system may not be such a bright idea because they could both fail. So the complementary system that IBC is using really now is the physical getting the information. This is at the polling station. Getting the information physically from the register, but that it's complementary. But, and this now is to answer your second question, it may not be ideal because you go back to the reason that we went to technology in the first place. So, as at now, me, who is not a technology person, I have not yet engaged with an understanding of what a complementary system that does not rely on the register would do.
So maybe to help you, this complementary system can be manual in the sense that the voter identification is manual, it's outside the technology. There is a physical counting, the physical tallying of the Form 34, 34A, 34B, 34C, and the handwritten transmission or the physical transmission of the forms to the National Tallying Center. This is in regard maybe to the presidential.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is maybe what could be manually. So we are asking, given now those steps that are being taken manually without the help of technology, if you become successful and you are the chairperson of the IBC, how would you ensure that those processes meet the constitutional threshold that is established in Article 86 in regard to the system being verifiable, accurate, accountable, transparent?
Let me say this. I think it would be, in the absence of technology, it becomes more difficult to ensure that it is verifiable. So I think one then would be looking at how do you safeguard, for example, the journey, the physical journey that that Form 34A takes to become 34B and then eventually get to the National Tallying Center. And I also think that participants, not to run away from the responsibility of IBC to deliver an election that is verifiable, credible, and transparent. The players in the political parties, the candidates, I think need to play a bigger role in terms of protecting that process, and that requires, I think, engagement between IEBC and the stakeholders in coming up with an alternative system, which, as I hear you, would be entirely devoid of technology, which of course means that we are going back to where we started.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We are almost halfway through, so be concise in your responses. I want to invite Dr. Koki to ask some questions.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Justice Nyachae, you mentioned that you have been in the democratization movement in Kenya, and indeed it is true we have worked together. My question is, one of the issues that has really concerned democracy, has hampered democracy in Kenya, is and has contributed to divisive politics, is a system of first past the post, or what we have in Kenya. that leads to results that the winning candidate takes all, where the winner takes all. And one of the concerns that, of course, there are many ideas that have been advanced on how to improve the democracy and the electoral landscape by introducing different types of electoral systems. For example, mixed member proportional representation, etc., which addresses some of these divisive elections. Why do you think that has not succeeded in Kenya? And you have been involved in, in this process for that long. That's the first question.
My own view is that I think there are probably several reasons which pertain to our type of politics, which sadly is not always issue-based. And that's why even political parties, to actually achieve issue-based political parties has been a challenge. And that's why, for example, proportional representation may not work, because you have a mindset that we want our own representative in this particular locality or in this particular community, who we see as our representative. It's not about issues. That, I think, is a reality. But let me say this. Those who, in the democratization process, as you will recall, Dr. Muli, we tended to deal with much more basic things, and we really didn't get at that time to the stage where we are looking at, for example, alternative kinds of elections. I always ask, whenever I hear that argument, I always ask myself, why does first past the post work in very many other systems, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge in Kenya. The people of Kenya, I think, promulgated a constitution as they saw fit, how they wanted to be governed, and perhaps and our politics tend to revolve around individuals. Perhaps a solution would be to have a system where, yes, first past the post, for example, if you're talking about a presidential election, but then you have individuals who have huge followings, and when they lose an election, whichever way they lose an election, their followers just feel, then we are done for. If our person did not get it, then we are done for. So, to me, not being pessimistic, but I wouldn't start with trying to change the system so that we have, say, proportional representation, which I personally favor. I would begin it from the pragmatic perspective of, is there a way that we can ensure that participants in an election at the end of that process are not feeling excluded from the body politic?
Thank you. Justice Nyachae, perhaps you can share with the panel some ideas on how we can address this issue in Kenya, this perennial problem of divisive politics, and when at the end of election results where they are not being accepted, and after elections we have those members, you're saying the followers of the losing candidate, the first runners-up, has a lot of votes that have just gone to waste.
Yes.
How do we address that so that we can make Kenyans appreciate and accept the results of the elections?
I think the first thing I would say, Dr. Muli, is that what we were discussing a minute ago, where we want to get to a situation where the people of Kenya have faith in the system, and to the extent that they are more likely to accept the result. I don't want to speak too much. The chair warned me, but let me just give a quick example. I'm not a great football fan, Chair, but in 2014, by God's grace, I got an opportunity to go and watch the World Cup final in Rio, in Brazil. Thousands of people in that stadium, and everybody with very strong views in terms of who they are supporting. At the end of the match, you just had two reactions. Those who won were jubilant. Those who lost left there feeling dejected. But what you didn't have is a scenario of those who lost saying, no, there was something not right here. Of course, there are things like, I forget what they call it, where nowadays there's technology assists to follow some of those things. But the important thing is, how do you, in answer to Dr. Muli's question, how do we get to a situation, and that's the first part, a situation where people have faith in that system. So if they lose, they're just dejected, but they don't cry foul. The second team, the second side of it, I think if we accept as a people that we have this problem that is perennial, where we have difficulties in accepting the results and so on, because of what the consequences are. Because the consequences is that a leader and his or her people feel, oh, if once we are lost, then we are done. We have nothing out of it. Is perhaps to relook at the structure of government so that in the body politic, those who have not won at all levels to be able to form government feel that they are still participating in the body politics. Those are the two suggestions that I would make.
Thank you very much, Justice Nyachae. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. I presume that in Brazil there was confidence in the referee.
Chair, there must have been, because I didn't see anybody shouting referee Akwende or things like those. I just saw people jubilating in that particular match. Germany won. I saw people, those supporting Germany, jubilating. The other side, Argentina lost, the crying. But it's just the way you accept that we lost. But nobody challenged the system of how the result was arrived. That's my point, Chair.
Okay, then we will ask you further questions, since you will be the referee if you get this job.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you again, Justice Nyachae. You are the chair of CIC, which I'm looking at the Constitution here. You are to monitor, facilitate, and oversee the development of legislation and administration procedures required to implement this Constitution. Now, I believe you were part of the Chapter 15, the operationalization of the Chapter 15 commissions, for which CIC was one of them, and particularly IBC is one of the Chapter 15 commissions. However, in the recent past, in 2014, there was the Senate actually raised concern with regard to conflicts between the Commission or within the Commission. And I think this one was specifically to National Gender and Equality Commission. Equally, in 2015, there was an issue at Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which is also a Chapter 15 commission. And even it went to court. There were investigations that were done. At some point, they were nullified on the basis that there were no commissioners at EACC. We've seen what has been happening at IBC. 2017, we saw how the former chair, the CEO, how some commissioners left, resigned. And coming home to the IPC Act, I was just looking at it, and we've had 10 amendments up to last year. The one that created this selection panel was actually the 10th amendment of the IPC Act. So looking at the governance framework of these constitutional commissions and the conflicts that we've seen running across, is there a problem with regard to the governance framework of our constitutional commissions? And is it a constitutional issue? Is it a legal issue? Or it's more of a governance issue? Thank you.
My answer to that would be it's none of the above. The biggest problem is the dynamics of personalities and what is perceived as power play. The one you didn't mention was between the National Land Commission and the Ministry of Lands. I honestly, obviously, like I said earlier on, hindsight is always 2020. There must have been a few things here that when you look back, you say, this we could improve on and this we could improve on. But the basic framework for each of those constitutional commissions, I would still stand by the laws that were put in place. The problem, if we are to be honest with ourselves, is personalities, the dynamics of power play, resistance to change. Classic example would be the conflicts that were there between the National Police Service Commission and the National Police Service itself, the Inspector General and his team. I still don't think the problem was either with the Constitution or with either with the Constitution or the laws made to implement the Constitution. I think it has more to do with a situation where one side or other is resisting change. You know, we must not forget at any point that the 2010 Constitution was and remains a radical document, a transformative document, relative to where we were before. So when you tell a senior police officer, take the IG, and I mean, it's just an example, I'm not accusing the IG of anything, that you are able to do this previously, but now under the constitutional dispensation that we now have, this can only be done this way, or this can be done by another body like the Commission. Even when we were writing the KDF Act, for example, it took a lot of energy, particularly by Dr. Muli, Elizabeth Muli, who was in charge of that particular thematic group. It took a lot of energy, negotiation, for the military to understand a concept called civilian oversight, which is in the Constitution. They're not used to it. To their credit, eventually they were able to internalize it. To me, the problem we have been having with the constitutional commissions is not about the Constitution, is not about the laws to implement the Constitution. It's about the power play and resistance to change.
Further to that, the IBC Act, which if you are successful, you will be responsible for its implementation, was actually amended in 2016. And it is the only one under Chapter 15 commissions that has separated the functions of the commissioners and the secretariat, unlike all the other Chapter 15. This one under Section 11A has went ahead to separate it. So given your experience and the fact that you've said it's not about the law, it's not about the constitution, it's about power play, so how will you, if appointed, handle these challenges that have been default to IBC for the last 10 or so years?
Sorry, which particular one? Which particular challenge?
You see, Section 11,
yes.
2A
sets out the...
It is the only
yes.
of all the Chapter 15
yes.
where it has clearly separated the roles
yes.
of the Commission and
yes.
of the Secretariat,
yes.
unlike any other Chapter 15.
Yes.
So, given the fact that you've said this is about power play, it's not an issue of law.
Yeah.
So, assuming you, and if you get this position,
yes.
as the chair of IBC, how will you ensure that these conflicts, perennial conflicts that have been there at IBC, which are more of power play, not the law, how will you address them as once appointed?
Okay. I think there are two different levels of conflict. The one that we were talking about in the earlier question is about the Commission as an entity and maybe another entity like part of the executive which was dealing with particular issues beforehand. Now you're asking me about within the Commission. And if you're asking me about IBC, if I was privileged to serve as chair of IBC, I would consider myself lucky, more lucky than the other constitutional commission heads, for the simple reason that I accept that amendment 11A is a very helpful and useful amendment, because you don't then have to have any tug of war about who does what. The bigger problem has been, in my view, with the other external entities. But let me come to IBC. You know what? Honestly, I think the solution to IBC, 11A is very good. It helps. But 11A will not solve the problem if the mindset of the respective players, like the commissioners and the secretariat, you know, are mentally operating from different perspectives. That amendment is 2016. Yeah. Now, if we just look at the commission, it didn't help in 2022 at Bombers. It was there. You still had this rupture which nobody understands. Yeah. But which, for me, I attribute to more, not about the structure. I attributed more to a problem of personalities and a problem of interests, and again, power play. So the law there, which is very good, Section 11A of the Act is very good. It sets out all this, yeah? But we still have a challenge. Even when I read the Supreme Court judgment for 22, which endeavored to advise the issue of the relationship between the chairperson and the commissioners relative to the chairperson constitutionally being the returning officer for the presidential election. I'm persuaded that even with that guidance from the Supreme Court, if the mindset of the people within that commission is wrong or is negative, you will still have it. So maybe I'm going further than the question you asked me, but if I was to find favor in the position that I have applied for, and I was find myself as chair of the commission, I would consider one of my most urgent and major tasks is how to make 7 people every person has come from wherever they have come from, how to turn that into a team which focuses on what the mandate is and how each of them individually can deliver for a collective discharge of the mandate. And for me, as an individual, I consider that my experience at CIC would stand me in good stead.
Thank you very much. I'll ask Misati Evans to take up some questions.
Thanks so much. Let me call you Charles. That's what I'm used to calling you. Now, from what you have just answered, it will be clear that the issue of personality and the institutional infrastructure is not a problem. Then in your own view, what do you think brings these conflicts as the state currently as it is? Why are we having problems? Because from your presentation, or the way you have answered, is like the personality issue and the infrastructure is okay.
What I think causes the problem is you have a situation, and again, allow me to refer back to the experience I had at CIC. Remember, CIC was the commission was created by a process which involved the 2 disparate political groups that had formed the coalition government. If we are to be honest with ourselves, what that meant is that people came there probably from the perspective of a political I have come here by virtue of political coalition X, and I have come here by virtue of political coalition Y. So, from the onset, there was potential for distrust. There was potential for suspicion. So, I think there was a need, and I think we succeeded, for the commission to do what needed to do, whether it is bonding, whether it is spending time together, whether it is reassuring each other, whether it is trying to understand each other, whatever it is, so that when we had disagreements in the boardroom, and there were many, there were disagreements arising from issues that different members had different perspectives. And that way, at least for me as chair, it made my life easier. There are many times we fought very hard in the boardroom, but we arrived at a decision because of that goodwill. And then when we walked out of the boardroom, we presented a position that we all accepted. The challenge, therefore, is how do you overcome, and they're quite natural, the prejudices people have, the suspicions that people come with, and possibly people have different, I hope not, different agenda, but those are the challenges that have to be overcome, so that the commission, you don't have the kind of rupture that you had at Bomas in 2022.
Thanks. As a follow-up question to that, the work of the Secretariat being more of operational, but you realize that the Commission is the one which owns up the results of the operations. How will you ensure that you own whatever activities, whatever mission, and whatever activities they do, that you are in charge and you own it? And then the last question: do you think the issue of procurement has any bearing towards the conflicts that happens in IPC?
And I can honestly say I am not sure, but I have had that said. That's my honest answer. That sometimes there are interests other than the delivery of the mandate. There's a school of thought, for example, that when you had a commission which came in when other commissioners had been there, perhaps there was a feeling that when we were not here, what happened that we missed out on. I think that is the honest truth, but I don't know. I don't know. Honestly, I can. But having sorry, what was the other than procurement?
You own the actions of the operations.
Yes. So I think it's a matter of working relationships. And I go back to the whole question of what happened at Bomas in 2022, and we can't run away from it. I mean, it was the low point of the Electoral Commission. When you think about it, the actual physical verification that happens at the National Tallying Center is actually done by the Secretariat under the supervision of the Commission. So really, because it's done by the Secretariat under the supervision of the Commission, you would expect that you wouldn't have that kind of scenario, because the Secretariat, which has been doing the tallying under that supervision, and it's mathematical. We have verified. It may be laborious. It may take time, but it should be purely mathematical. Especially when we remember, it's just verification between from 34A that was transmitted and from 34A that arrived at Bomas. So, when the returning officer, take my constituency again as an example, when the returning officer from Nyaribari Church constituency arrives with his 34B with the attachments of 34A, all that the Commission is required to do is to verify that what he has brought is consistent with what was uploaded and sent to the National Tallying Center. Because in the minor KI case and subsequently, the courts have said what was announced by the presiding officer at Kisi Primary School cannot even be changed by the chairman of the commission or chairperson of the commission. So, when you think about it, the tallying exercise should be an exercise really that is basically mathematical. Because once you tally that, what happened at the Kisi Primary School with what was uploaded and sent to the National Tallying Center, multiply that by, is it 47,000 polling stations, it's purely mathematical. So, ideally, that problem that arose in Bomas shouldn't have arisen. I am persuaded that what happened in Bomas had more to do with the personality differences. I wouldn't want to guess what caused the personality differences or whatever, but it had less to do with that mathematical process that is the tallying at Bomas.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Chair. Over to you.
I'd like to ask Madam Fatuma to bring in her interventions, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Nyachai, you okay with that? Okay.
As I said, they're all my names. You had Mr. Mr. call me Charles. I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. In the next election, the youth are going to be the highest percentage. However, they face barriers like disillusionment, apathy. So if you become chair, how would you meaningfully engage them in the electoral processes so that they're able to take care of their political and civil rights?
I think that the answer to that is at several levels. At the most intimate level, of course, if the commission is in place and, for example, starts continuous registration of voters, the chances are that the 500,000 or so people who are going to be employed to do that are going to be young people. That's at one level where they will feel engaged. But in terms of the process itself, because IBC is required to deliver on a credible election, and that is reflected in both its vision and its mission. Then, if you take the cycle, the electoral cycle, the young people will want to be part of the process right from the stage of registration of them now being forget about them working for IBC to register voters, but them now making it easy for them to register. This requires voter education, because in the process of voter education, all stakeholders, including IBC, must dispel from the notion, from young people and Kenyans generally, the notion that the election is about other people, not about them. And I think the Commission, through voter education, can go a long way in making them feel part of the process. It is not the Commission's responsibility, for example, to deal with identity cards, but the Commission, as an entity that deals with elections, if I was chair, I would be talking to the executive about how we can help young people to be to have IDs. And there are many challenges. There are many challenges. Some of them on day one, whoever goes to that commission, and they're going to involve young people. Take the by-elections, for example, that are pending. If you take a constituency like Banisa, I think 2 years they have not had representation. In those 2 years, there must be a lot of young people who have come of age maybe have IDs and they want to vote. The law requires that you stop registration of voters. Is it 60 days? 60 days before the date of the by-election. So, in where there is an urgency in having that by-election, these young people are going to feel disenfranchised. That's just one example. Now, at a national level, there is an obligation on all stakeholders to ensure, right from them being enabled to get identity cards, which, as I say, is not part of IBC's mandate, so they get identity cards. IBC must facilitate them to register as voters. And very importantly, in terms of civic education, and voter education, and the wider civic education anyway, which as a country maybe we haven't done very well. There is a need for all of us to work together to ensure that the youth in this country feel that they matter. That is stakeholder engagement.
So would you think of, I liked the part you talked about the obligation of creating awareness on obligations of stakeholders. So would there be specific programs targeting the youth on this?
Yes, I would, after receiving advice on how we could do this, and especially what are the financial implications, if I was chair, I would put a high premium on inclusivity for young people, so that they feel this process, they are part of it, they are an integral part of it. As you said when you were asking the question, they even are the larger percentage of the people that citizens that are eligible to vote. So I would look to the National Treasury to specifically provide funds to enhance especially voter education, and in that particular section of stakeholders, and engage them as widely as we can in that, and continuously in that period before the elections. And continue, I think, looking at the wider issue, I think one of the challenges IBC seems to have is that, especially in terms of funding, the focus only seems to be as you approach elections. And yet things like voter education, registration and so on and so forth are things really which should be completely around the electoral cycle. And I would want, if I was chair, I would want, as a matter of policy, to engage commissioners so that we collectively engage those who provide funding, so that there is a specific target of young people.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to ask Mr. Bore Nicodemus. I'll ask you.
Thank you, Chairman, and Charles, for being able to take us through and answering these questions. And I'd like to, looking at your track record and having worked as the CIC chairperson, I'm sure you experienced cartels who wanted the status quo remain and engaging you with your pet subject of football. We have seen referees ending the game while they are halfway going home, because they are aware that when they end the game in the middle of the field, they will face a Herculean task of explaining to the people why they have lost the game. Now, we are looking at IEBC and looking at the budgets that they have presented, some people look at the budget in terms of how they might be able to gain from it. When they talk about the 63 billion shillings that they have asked from Treasury, some people look at how much they can gain from it. And you are applying to be the chairperson of such a commission, which has a lot of interests that are not only political, but also financial. So how would you be able to manage the interests of the country, to balance the interests of the country, at the same time getting rid of the cartels that may be a part of the problems of the internal conflicts within IEBC?
Thank you, Mr. Bore. Let me say, first of all, at CIC, this is not a problem that I experienced. I never, at any level, maybe because there wasn't the kind of budget that is at IBC. So that I never encountered any cartel in relation to the problems we encountered at CIC had more to do with political resistance to change. That was and it was at all levels, whether you're talking of parliament, whether you're talking of the executive. But at CIC, I did not experience that at all. I can visualize, with the kind of budget that IBC has, I can visualize how that would be a challenge. I would see my job, if I got to be chair, my job and that of the commission, we are required to provide policy, to oversight the Secretariat as they implement that policy, and to ensure, ethical practice within the commission. So, for me, that would be the guiding, focus. That everything be done in accordance with the policy that has been adopted. Everything be done ethically, and the commission to ensure that they discharge the mandate of oversighting. But I think that it's one of those areas that if the commission are all of the mindset, yeah, then I think the commission should be able to resist any untoward attempts by what you have described possibly as cartels. But I can visualize that kind of figure probably has people salivating around the country just because of the figure.
As a follow-up question, what kind of legacy do you hope to leave behind in terms of ethics and trust and constitutional governance in Kenya if you are given the chance to become the chair of IEBC?
Thank you, sir. Given the history of this commission, especially in the last 3 elections, like I said earlier, there are many people, well-minded people, who think it's a very brave thing to go to IBC. And therein lies the challenge. So what I would want with a good team, if I got this position, with a good team of commissioners, the legacy I would want us to leave is a legacy that this is the commission which was able, because as I said earlier, the biggest challenge we have as far as IBC and the people of Kenya is concerned is there's a huge trust deficit. The commission that comes in after you've done your work will conduct, because of the 6 years, will conduct one election. So they have one bullet. And the one bullet is to reverse that situation of the trust deficit. So for me, alongside anything else and everything else that the Commission will be doing from day one, is what is geared towards reducing that trust deficit. I'm an old-fashioned, or shall I say an old-school lawyer. So for me, the Supreme Court of Kenya tells me the 2022 election met the minimum standards contemplated by the Constitution. I accept that because that's me as an old-school lawyer. But that's not good enough for the people of Kenya. Beyond what the Supreme Court said, the people of Kenya themselves must feel like the losing side in Rio in the football match. They must feel that, yeah, we lost, but that's the way it goes. We can't all win, but we have nothing negative to say about the Electoral Management Board. So what would I like to be remembered? I would like to be remembered, and you can't do this alone. It can only be part of a team. I would like to be remembered as part of a team, and if I was given the opportunity to serve as chair, I would like to be remembered as the chair who was able to completely reduce the gap of the trust deficit between the people of Kenya and the electoral management body in election issues. That's how I would like to be remembered.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll ask Professor Adams. Please, Professor Olo.
Thank you, Chair. You've had all the salutations you asked for. Mr. Justice, Charles, Nyachai. But my colleagues have not called you by the name which I'm sure you are given traditionally. So I'll address you as Ayako.
Thank you, sir. Very good name.
Very good name, I believe so. I've heard you. I've looked at your CV. And your big ticket to shoe in into this position of Chair IBC, if I hear you correctly, is your experience in CIC. Because other than the introduction, IED, you packed it. You are chair there. ICJ, you packed it. It has just been CIC, and I see where you are coming from. And that's where my first question comes in. Another consistent parallel to your CIC experience has been the liner, resistance to change. And at the end, when Bore was questioning you, you said both the executive and parliament. If I may ask, why does Ayako now feel that when it becomes chair of IBC, that resistance will disappear and he and his team will lower the trust deficit? What will happen that hasn't been there in this resistance to change?
Let me say this. When I talk about the resistance to change at CIC, effectively what I am saying is I expect all levels of resistance even at IBC, probably because the stakes are higher. At CIC, I wouldn't say that we failed to overcome. I think we went a long way for lack of a better word, in plowing through that resistance. We didn't always succeed. And that's why I gave some examples of what I consider to, especially in terms of legislation like the Ethics and Integrity Act. I felt we tried, but it was viciously, for lack of a better word, watered down. But we live to fight another day, and you know, even at IBC, one expects resistance. It's not that I expect that you'll walk into IBC and everybody will clap for you and say, this is what we want to do. But what I'm saying, Prof, if the focus is on reducing, if not completely obliterating, that trust deficit, and you start from day one, then you're not even looking at just you as individuals. You're looking, how can technology help us to do this? How can we improve the policies? Can we address, for example, the question, I don't know if it was Dr. Muli or somebody who asked about the complementary system. With the focus on trying. It's not something that I am naive enough to think that can be achieved overnight. But I was answering the question from Mr. Bore, what would I like to be remembered as? That's why I keep saying, even if it's not completely obliterated, because that may not be easy, if it is reduced, as opposed to getting worse, then I will feel I am happy to be remembered that way.
Thank you very much. My other question is that, again, I believe that for IBC, most of the time, for Kenyans, it is which side of the political divide are you in? And there are those who have time and again become pessimistic that prefix independent should be removed from IBC because it's never independent. The law that is guiding us in this selection panel is very clear on who is qualified or not qualified to run. And I just want to use the analogy that you gave us of the World Cup. And now I won't mention teams because Kenyans are very passionate about the Premier League. But there are usually some referees that you'll just see trending that they are favoring one side. And my question is that if you were to succeed as chair, what's your understanding of independence and impartiality, given that you and other chairs before have been politically affiliated? It's not a secret. As you walk in and wear in a football match the black or whatever color, and you have that firimbi, and you have the yellow card and the red card, what changes when you walk in there as now the referee of the game? Associate with that, because I won't want to ask another question separately, that we know that sometime, I can't remember which year, but 4 commissioners out of the blue resigned and really put the country in a quagmire over quorum issues and so on. And you, in your own statement, which the chair has followed, has told us that you did quit the ESCJ. In fact, you went ahead to say you are earning $2,000 for a job you felt you are not doing. I don't want to ask that, have you been replaced, and is that new person earning money for no reason? I don't want to go there. I want to stick to your quitting. Given that those 4 commissioners quit and put the country in the tenterhooks of what finally happened, Kenyans watching will be asking, Charles Nyachae did quit once. Will he quit again, especially in this high-pressure job? What assurance do you give them that that will not happen?
Thank
Please
you.
Take maximum of 4 minutes.
Okay. The answer is no. I will not quit, because I do not anticipate a situation at IBC that the job for which I have been recruited, if I become chair, that I simply don't have anything to do, and therefore there's no point in me going to the office. I don't anticipate that. I have endeavored to explain what happened in the ESCJ. At IBC, the one thing that will not make me quit is any kind of pressure, because this is something I have given thought to. I mean, I am not applying for this job thinking it's going to be a bed of roses. So pressure will not be the reason that I will quit. And because I do not see a scenario where I have no work to do, I will not quit, because that work could be actually, if it's a question, for example, of trying to get resources to do A, B, C, D, that in itself is significant work to do. So the question of quitting, if I got the position, doesn't arise. Now, you made reference to political affiliations. I think your average Kenyan, at some point, probably has some kind of political affiliation. My mind is very clear that notwithstanding any political affiliation I may have had at any point in my public life, if I got this opportunity and I accepted this job, I will only be guided by the Constitution of Kenya, the laws, and of course, if I get the opportunity, I will be taking an office, an oath of office. So I am able to look the people of Kenya in the eye collectively and tell them that in that situation, I would have every intention of living by that oath of office. Daktari, and allow me to say this just as an example. The way the IBC Act is designed, several of the honorable members around the table come here by virtue of political parties. But as I sit here as a candidate, I don't have the slightest doubt that every member in this panel is going to do their job impartially and focus on what they believe is the best result. I have no qualms whatsoever. I cannot say that so-and-so maybe at some point was a member of this party, that and the other. And I think we have the capacity to rise above that at different times. And I can look the people of Kenya in the eye and say, yes, I would be able to do the job impartially.
So you are a real footballer. You have returned the ball into his court. But I want to ask you, Prof, to shoot your 2 high school questions.
The chairman has asked me to shoot my high school question. You are in ESCJ, which means you are in the body organogram of the East African community. The ESC Treaty envisages 4 stages. how many are already in place, and which ones are in place and which ones are not yet in place?
If you are to ask, different people have different thinking on this, but if you are to ask me, I would say that what is in place, to a certain extent, not fully, is basically the common market. That's actually the one that I would be comfortable to say is in place. The others, I would have reservations to say that they're in place. Yeah.
My second question that Chair calls high school question is that the Electoral Commission of Kenya has promulgated at the Lancaster negotiation for the Independence Constitution, ran the 1963 election, then amendments to the Constitution literally buried it until the return of multipartism, when ECK was again reenacted into the Constitution. Which body, which office ran the elections from 1969 to 1988?
There was an office called the Supervisor of Elections. In practice, the elections were run by the then provincial administration. Yeah, I think basically that's the answer I would give. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Tanui?
Mine is a quick one. Justice retired Chairman Emeritus, if I may use those terms. What would you tell Kenyans who are saying that you've served this country as a judge of the East African Court? You've also served Kenyans as chairperson of CIC, and now you should allow other Kenyans to serve as chair IBC. What can you tell them?
Yes, I would tell Kenyans, essentially I am not before this panel from the perspective of looking for a job, so that one can say, wachia wengine na wao wafanye kazi. Of course it's a job, but, and I reflected long and hard. And I imagine if I was looking for a job, I would probably still, even at my age, get a less dramatic job. The reason that I am offering myself is because, one, I remain passionate about the Constitution of Kenya 2010. I believe that the electoral process is really the backbone of the democratic architecture that the people of Kenya envisaged in that constitution. I believe that I have something to offer to the people of Kenya in this regard, arising from my training, arising from my experience, and arising to my passion about the constitution. I would not be as arrogant as to imagine that I'm the only one who can do this job. No, I'm just telling the panel and the appointing authority, I'm available. I believe I can do the job. I would be committed if I got the opportunity. So I'm not really, I would want to tell the people of Kenya that I'm not really trying to squeeze into a job which other people can do. Of course, there are many Kenyans who can do the job. But I'm just saying, I believe I can do the job, and I am available. That's basically what I'm saying.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Justice. We are required as a panel to receive memorandum from citizens of this country.
Yes.
And as such, put such a memoranda to you, and we have brought that to your attention. One by Bunge la Wananchi and a sworn affidavit by John and a few others that has been put to you, and they allege the following: that you failed Chapter 6 integrity test due to scandals including extramarital affairs and child support lawsuits that you have faced before. Number 2, financial impropriety. They allege that you are linked to Procter and Allen, a cereals company in financial distress that has defaulted 3.7 billion loan, raising doubts about your financial management capacity. Number 3, that you, Chair, lack a public record, and they allege that to implement key electoral reforms, you failed to do this as a chair of CIC, and in coming into office as a chair of IBC, there will be nothing new that you'll add. Number 4, they say that there's some conflict of interest, that perhaps you have some political patronage that bring in lack of integrity, and you may not be objective in a presidential election. Then finally, that you lack public trust due to these past controversies, including personal scandals and questionable appointments and financial disputes. What do you have in terms of response? Briefly, kindly.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm happy to respond to those. I did get the memorandum and I looked at it. Of course, this is a public process, and it's right of every Kenyan to make allegations. One would expect that any serious allegations would have some support. Now, when I go through this, the first one of personal morals and integrity are just allegations, and some, I saw a page from some newspaper, and that's all that it is, allegations. Whatever they talk about, they have really not given any substance, and I do not accept the allegations, and I think that's really, on that one, that's what I would say about it. The second one, and I think Procter & Allen, I have never had anything to do with the management of that company. I am a very small shareholder in an investment company which itself has shares in Procter & Allen. I have no direct links with Procter & Allen. So I don't know how I would answer that, because if you're talking about financial management, I've never been involved in the financial management of Procter & Allen. So I really don't know how that would be said to reflect financial impropriety. The allegation that I failed at CIC, I think it's insulting, not so much to myself, because I'm a candidate here and they're welcome to say what they wish to say about me. I think it's insulting to the people I worked with at CIC, the entire team, and all the other stakeholders, to say that we did nothing and achieved nothing at CIC. I think the work that CIC did is self-evident. So I think this is just an allegation, like all the others, meant to scandalize. Political patronage. I'm not sure which you referred to, because I saw two things. One, a statement about the manner in which I was appointed to the East African Court of Justice. To the best of my knowledge, that's the way. The treaty has no details, and that's the way all. The manner I was appointed is the way all judges are appointed through their respective heads of state who sit in the summit, which is the appointing authority. The head of state nominates. And so unless the treaty is changed, I really don't think, and unless every other person who has been appointed from Kenya to the East African Court of Justice has gone there by virtue of political patronage, which I think there is no evidence to that. Again, I think this is purely scandalous. The other thing, there was an allegation of me being related to somebody who they seem to know that is going to be a presidential candidate. Something I don't know anything about. The person they mentioned is not my relative, so I really don't know how I would respond to it. Again, I think it's purely scandalous. I'm very clear in my mind that none of those allegations have any basis whatsoever. And really, Chair, unless members of the panel wish to ask me specific follow-up questions on that, which I will be happy to answer, I consider the entire memorandum as being motivated by ill will for reasons that I don't know, and not being supported by the truth. But if members have anything specific they wish to ask, I have no problem.
Any knowledge of you being a state candidate?
A state candidate? For this job? No. I'm not sure what a state candidate is, but I made this decision to run. You know, Mr. Chairman, when somebody talks about a state candidate, they are actually insulting this panel. You're the people who are going to decide who among the people that you have interviewed you are going to recommend to the appointing authority. So the idea of a state candidate is foreign to me.
Your last question.
Thank you, Chairman. Justice Nyachae, there have been allegations by Bunge la Wananchi.
Yes.
In a memorandum that I'm certain that you have seen.
Yes.
Facts which have been disclosed to you earlier. That there was misappropriation while you were at CIC in the year 2015. That the Auditor General's report revealed that at that time the Commission spent an excess of expenditure of 43 million in a budget of 306 million, which had been approved. That at the time you ended up spending about 349.8 million, even though largely the amount was accounted for. They say that the 9.2 million was fraudulently paid for the supply of newspapers, a matter which they say to have been subject of criminal investigations. What is your response to these allegations that this panel has received in the form of a memorandum?
Sorry, I'm hearing this for the first time. Was that memorandum sent to me?
I think so, it was.
Separately from the earlier one?
It must have been in the same package.
Oh, I didn't see that one. And my answer is very simple. I know absolutely nothing about that allegation. I was not involved at CIC in anything to do with the financial processes or practice at the Commission. I'm also not aware of it, but in any event, I was not. I would have wanted to know if there were criminal proceedings, who are there against and what was the outcome. I really don't know anything about it.
That is self-explanatory, how you have explained, and I think it is sufficient for the purposes of this interview. We just want accountability in terms of the memorandum that we have received.
No, that's,
and of course, a fair defense for yourself.
Absolutely.
Which we are grateful.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, Tanwi?
Maybe, Chair, to also help us, were you the accounting officer of CIC?
Not at all. Not at all.
Thank you. That's all.
Yeah.
I think that's enough.
Okay.
Finally, you may not have seen this memorandum, but we have received it this afternoon saying that you are a state officer. Are you a state officer?
I chair the council of the Kenya School of Government. I'm not sure that that certainly makes me a public officer. I'm not sure it makes me a state officer.
Okay. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
That's enough. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It's taken us long. We have taken almost about 10 minutes above the time we should have taken with you. But thank you for indulging us into your life and your career. Do you have any question for us?
Doesn't have to be a question, or I can make a comment.
You can make a comment.
My comment is to really appreciate the opportunity to interview before yourselves, to wish you well in the process, because you are doing an important public duty, whatever you decide. And to say that for me, the most important thing is that from whichever corner I may be, I remain passionate about the issues that we have been discussing. If I get the opportunity, I will endeavor to do my best. If I don't get the opportunity, I will continue to support the country as it strives to achieve the issues that we have been discussing on IEBC to deliver its mandate from whatever corner. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate your time and the sacrifice you have made to spend your afternoon with us. We wish you well in this pursuit. There's a bottle of water there. Please do remember to pick your certificates. Asante sana. Thank you. That's yours. It's okay.
Naam, akituondokea baada ya kutamatisha tu ikiwa ni muda wake alasiri ya leo, alikuwa si mwingine ila ni Charles Nyachaya, alikuwa mwenyekiti wa tume ya utekelezaji wa katiba, akifika mbele ya jopo linaloongozwa naye Daktari Nelson. Basi alikuwa anawasilisha tu baadhi ya yale yaliokuwa tu yakiulizwa na jopo hilo, akiliongoza akiwa ni Nelson Makanda, kuwasilisha tu ikiwa ni upeo mzima kuhusu swala zima la nafasi yake ya kutafuta uwenyekiti wa makamishna wa IEBC, nafasi iliyokuwa imeshikiliwa naye marehemu Wafula Chebukati. Kumbuka ni watatu hii leo kuhojiwa kati ya 11 walioorodheshwa na jopo hili kufika mbele yao hii leo. Majira ya asubuhi wa kwanza kufika mbele ya kikao hicho hakuwa mwingine ila alikuwa ni Abdul Kadir Lorot Ramadhan, ambaye ni hakimu mkuu na pia vile ni wakili, ni mtaalamu katika utawala na sheria za umma, na kwa wakati mmoja pia aliendesha miradi ya misaada ya sheria bila malipo. Alikuwa wa kwanza, kisha kafuatwa baadaye naye Ann Atieno Madi, ambaye alikuwa karani mkuu wa mahakama na pia vile ana uzoefu wa kutosha ikiwa ni katika masala ya utawala na sheria. Basi saulike kwa sasa aliondokea ni Charles Nyachaya. Kama nilivyokueleza, alikuwa mwenyekiti wa tume ya utekelezaji wa katiba naye akijibu tu maswali yakihusisha ikiwa ni uzoefu wao, pia vile shutuma za ufisadi kwa wakati mmoja au kujihusisha tu na kati ya kesi zilizowapata wakiwa katika utawala tofauti. Ila kumbuka 11 hawa, mtazamaji, wanaotafuta nafasi hii ya uwenyekiti, wengi wao ni wanasheria, wataalamu wa utawala, wanadiplomasia na watetezi wa haki za binadamu. Ni shughuli ambayo itakuwa inaendelea hadi siku ya Jumatano, ila kwa hii leo tulikuwa na watatu hao, Anamadi, Charles Nyachae na pia vile Abdulkadir Rorot Ramadhan. Kwa hapo kesho wanaotarajiwa pia vile atakuwa ni Francis Kisinga, Edward Katana, na katika siku za hapo siku ya Jumatano baada ya kesho huenda kukawa na Lilian Wanjiku, Robert Akumu, Saul Simiyu wa Silwa. 11 hawa, nafasi wanaotafuta ni moja tu, wenyekiti wa IBC watakaosimamia ikiwa ni makamishna wa IBC. Na kwa nafasi ya makamishna wa IBC 105 pia wanatafuta, au watu 105 wanatafuta nafasi ya kuwa makamishna wa IBC. Ni shughuli ambayo pia itakuwa inafuata hapo baadaye. Basi kwa njia mubashara tutazidi tu kukujuza kuhusiana na haya yanayoibuka pindi tu yanapoletwa kwa njia mubashara kwa runinga yako ya K24. Ila kwa sasa tukiendelea tu kuwatazimia yale tunayotarajia, dakika za kuhesabu kutoka sasa tutakuwa tunakuletea taarifa za upeo ya yale yaliyojiri siku hii ya leo, miongoni mwao ikiwa mahojiano haya ya kutafuta nafasi ya wenyekiti wa IBC. Siende mbali.
Follow the champions on the home of football. Watch the latest Man City content exclusively. Full match replays, extended highlights, coaches' interviews.
The target is not to win the Premier League, it's just, okay, next game, try to win it, this is what we have to do.
Players' interviews.
In general, the quality has been high and it's been good.
Behind the scenes and more. Every Saturday at 1 p.m. only on K24, the home of football.
Once upon a time, one day in August 2022, everything fell apart.
Hereby declares that Ruto William Samoei.
We are not at Bomas of Kenya because we cannot take ownership of the results that is going to be announced.
Involved and interested parties went to the